What if you had $500 billion? If you made $10,000 a day, every single day, it would take you 137,000 years to hit $500 billion. That's longer than modern humans have existed. You check your phone, your bank app crashes, then it loads, and sitting in your account is $500 billion. Not company shares, not real estate, not crypto, just pure liquid spendable cash. What do you actually do with it? Because at this level, buying stuff stops being interesting pretty fast. The real question is, what does $500 billion let you become? Let's start with the basics. Get the fantasy spending out of your system. You want the most expensive house on earth? Done. The one in Bel Air. That mega mansion with the 360-degree views, the 50-car garage, and its own nightclub, sold for $141 million. Sounds insane, right? That's 0.03% of your net worth. The equivalent of someone with $100,000 buying a $30 toaster. Want a super yacht? Jeff Bezos's yacht cost $500 million. It's so big, it needs its own support yacht just to carry the helicopter. You could buy 1,000 of them. You'd literally run out of ocean before you ran out of money. Private island? Richard Branson paid $180,000 for Necker Island back in 1978. Today, the most expensive private island ever sold went for around $100 million. You could buy every single private island currently listed for sale on Earth and still have 99% of your fortune left over. A Bugatti Chiron? $3 million. A fully loaded Boeing 787 Dreamliner? $300 million. You could have a fleet of 50 private jets, 500 hypercars, and barely make a dent in your bank account. This is the first problem with $500 billion. Consumer goods stop mattering. There's literally nothing you can buy as a person that would feel expensive. Shopping becomes boring. The thrill dies. So what do you do when you've maxed out personal consumption in about 15 minutes? You start buying things that aren't supposed to be for sale. Here's a fun fact. $500 billion is more than the GDP of 170 countries. You're not just rich. You're richer than entire nations. So maybe it's time to start thinking like one. You could buy every single NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL team. All of them. Combined. The total value of American professional sports is around $400 billion. Congratulations, you now own the games. Every touchdown, every slam dunk, every World Series, every broadcast deal and jersey sale flows directly into your pocket. Or forget sports. Buy the media instead. The New York Times is worth $8 billion. The Washington Post sold for $250 million. You could buy every major newspaper in America for loose change. Throw in some TV networks while you're at it. Warner Brothers Discovery is worth $20 billion. Paramount's sitting at around $8 billion. With $500 billion, you don't watch the news. You decide what the news is. But here's where it gets really interesting. You know what else costs money? Elections. The entire 2024 US presidential election. All candidates, all parties, all super PACs, everything, cost around $16 billion total. You could personally fund 30 presidential elections. Or, if you're thinking strategically, you could fund every competitive congressional race in the country for the next decade. 435 House seats, 34 Senate seats every 2 years. At roughly $20 million per competitive race, you could theoretically influence who controls the entire US government for generations. I'm not saying it's legal. I'm not saying it's ethical. I'm just saying it's mathematically possible. And that's just politics. Let's talk about this one. NASA's entire annual budget is $25 billion. That's everything. The ISS, the Mars rovers, the telescopes, all of it. With $500 billion, you could fully fund NASA for 20 straight years. Or you could skip the bureaucracy, start your own space program, and actually get things done. SpaceX has spent roughly $10 billion developing Starship. You could fund 50 Starship programs simultaneously. You could have your own moon base operational by 2030, your own Mars colony by 2040. You could be the first human to set foot on another planet, not because you trained as an astronaut, but because you literally own the rocket. Or forget space. Stay on Earth and actually fix something. The entire global budget for cancer research is about $25 billion per year. You could double it for 10 consecutive years. You could personally accelerate the cure for cancer by a decade. Your name wouldn't just be on a building. It would be in medical textbooks forever. What about climate change? The UN estimates we need roughly $4 trillion over the next decade to hit net zero targets. You can't cover that alone, but $500 billion represents 12.5% of the total. You could single-handedly provide an eighth of the funding needed to save the planet. Or, if you're feeling less optimistic about humanity's chances, you could build the ultimate insurance policy. The most expensive doomsday bunker ever constructed cost about $200 million. It's hidden somewhere in the Czech Republic. Self-sustaining. Has its own hospital, water treatment facility, and private cinema, and can apparently survive a direct nuclear strike. You could build 2,500 of those. Or think even bigger. New Zealand has become the unofficial escape plan for tech billionaires. Peter Thiel quietly bought 477 acres there. Larry Page reportedly secured residency. It's isolated, stable, and far enough from everywhere that most global catastrophes would miss it entirely. With $500 billion, you wouldn't buy a hideout in New Zealand. You'd basically buy New Zealand. Okay, not literally, but their entire GDP is $250 billion. Your personal fortune is double their whole economy. You could employ their entire workforce, fund their national government budget for 5 years. At some point, you stop being a billionaire and start being a nation state. But here's the twist nobody talks about. $500 billion has a spending problem. Not that you can't spend it, but that you physically cannot spend it fast enough. If you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you 1,369 years to go broke. $1 million a day. Every day. For over a millennium. And if you just parked that money in a boring index fund returning 7% annually, you'd generate $35 billion a year in interest alone. That's $96 million per day, $4 million per hour, $67,000 per minute. In the time it took me to say that last sentence, you made around $200,000. You literally cannot spend money faster than it multiplies. Buying a $300 million yacht? Replaced by interest income in 3 days. $1 billion skyscraper? You'd earn it back in 11 days doing absolutely nothing. At this scale, money stops being a resource. It becomes a force. It has its own gravity. It grows whether you want it to or not. So we've covered what $500 billion can buy. But let's talk about what it actually costs you. Every mega billionaire on Earth will tell you the same thing. Past a certain point, money creates more problems than it solves. With $500 billion, you'd need a security team the size of a small army. You could never casually walk down a street again. Every single relationship in your life would become suspect. Is this person here because they genuinely like me? Or because I'm worth more than most countries? Your kids would be kidnapping targets from birth. Your physical location would be classified information. You'd live in a security bubble so thick, you'd eventually forget what normal human interaction even feels like. And then there's the legacy problem. If you gave away $1 billion a year to charity, which would instantly make you the most generous philanthropist in human history, it would take 500 years to give it all away. Your great-great-great-great-grandchildren would still be managing your money. Do you trust people 500 years from now to use it wisely? Because historically, inherited wealth has a pretty terrible track record. Here's the thing I keep coming back to. Most people, when they imagine having $500 billion, picture freedom. No boss, no bills, no problems, just endless possibilities. But at this scale, you don't gain freedom. You gain responsibility, whether you want it or not, because sitting on $500 billion and doing nothing with it is itself a choice that affects millions of people. Every day you don't fund that cancer research, people die. Every year you don't address climate change, the clock keeps ticking. At $500 billion, inaction becomes action. Neutrality becomes impossible. You're a player in the game, whether you like it or not. Outro. Here's the uncomfortable truth about $500 billion. It's not really money anymore. It's power in its purest, most concentrated form. The power to reshape nations, fund scientific revolutions, cure diseases, or crush competitors. The power to live completely outside the system that everyone else is trapped in. At $500 billion, you don't play by the rules. You write them. So the real question isn't what you'd buy. It's what kind of person you'd become when nothing can touch you, nothing can stop you, and nothing you do has real consequences anymore. Because at that level, the only thing standing between you and becoming a supervillain is deciding not to be one.